Why do you remember some experiences so vividly while others fade completely? Think about your last vacation. Chances are, you don't remember every minute of every day. Instead, a few powerful moments stand out. Perhaps that breathtaking sunset on the beach, the stress of a delayed flight, or the farewell dinner on your final evening. This selective memory isn't random. It's guided by a fascinating quirk of human psychology called the peak end rule, discovered by Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. This principle reveals that our memories of experiences aren't comprehensive recordings. They're more like highlight reels, shaped primarily by the most intense moments, the peaks, and how things ended. What makes this rule so intriguing isn't just how it affects our memories, but how it influences everything from Netflix's content strategy to theme park design, from social media algorithms to medical procedures. Imagine knowing that a dentist deliberately made the final moments of your appointment more pleasant, not out of kindness, but because science showed it would make you remember the entire experience more favorably. In fact, Kahneman's groundbreaking research demonstrated this effect through a rather painful experiment. Participants submerged their hands in freezing water twice, once for 60 seconds at 14 degrees Celsius, and another time for 90 seconds, where the final 30 seconds were slightly warmer at 15 degrees Celsius. Despite enduring discomfort for longer in the second trial, participants consistently preferred it and were more willing to repeat it. Why? Because it ended on a less uncomfortable note. This seemingly simple principle has profound implications for how we experience and remember our lives. It explains why a single rude employee can ruin our impression of an entire company, why the finale of a TV series can color our memory of the whole show, and why that last bite of dessert might matter more than you think. As we explore the peak end rule, we'll uncover how businesses, technology platforms, and even healthcare providers are using this psychological insight to shape our experiences and memories. We'll discover why some moments matter more than others, and how understanding this principle can help us design better experiences, make better decisions, and even find more happiness in our daily lives. Let's dive into perhaps the most counterintuitive discovery about human memory and pain, one that completely changed how we think about medical procedures. Picture yourself in a dentist's chair. Common sense would suggest that the shorter the painful procedure, the better the experience, right? In Daniel Kahneman's groundbreaking study, participants underwent two different versions of an uncomfortable experience. In the first trial, they submerged their hand in painfully cold water, 14 degrees, for 60 seconds. In the second trial, they endured the same 60 seconds, but then kept their hands submerged for an additional 30 seconds, while the temperature was slightly raised to 15 degrees Celsius. Here's where it gets interesting. When asked which trial they'd prefer to repeat, participants consistently chose the longer experience. Think about that for a moment. People preferred 90 seconds of discomfort over 60 seconds, directly contradicting our intuitive assumption that less pain is always better. This phenomenon, which Kahneman termed duration neglect, reveals something profound about how our brains form memories of experiences. The implications for medical procedures have been revolutionary. Forward-thinking healthcare providers now deliberately structure treatments to end on a less intense note, even if it means extending the procedure slightly. For instance, some dental practices have begun incorporating brief periods of reduced intensity at the end of procedures, such as gentle cleaning or applying a soothing gel rather than abruptly ending after the most intensive work. This isn't just about making patients feel better in the moment, it's about reshaping how they remember the entire experience. Research shows that physicians with 5-star ratings typically have wait times that are over 20 minutes shorter than those with 1-star ratings, demonstrating how the entire experience, not just the medical procedure itself, influences patient memory and satisfaction. The power of duration neglect extends beyond dentistry. Surgeons are now paying more attention to recovery room experiences. Physical therapists are restructuring their sessions to end with easier exercises. Even childbirth procedures have been modified in some hospitals to ensure the final moments are as comfortable as possible for the mother. But perhaps the most striking aspect of this discovery is what it tells us about human memory. Our brains don't create memories by simply averaging all moments of an experience. Instead, they take significant shortcuts, heavily weighting the peak intensity and the final moments while largely ignoring duration. This explains why a 10-minute dental cleaning that ends uncomfortably might be remembered as worse than a 30-minute procedure that ends gently. This cognitive quirk might seem like a design flaw in human memory, but it actually serves an important evolutionary purpose. By prioritizing the most intense moments and endings, our brains create memories that help us make quick decisions about future experiences. After all, knowing exactly how long something painful lasted is less useful for survival than remembering how intensely it hurt and how it ended. The dentist's dilemma thus reveals a crucial truth about human experience. Sometimes, a longer but better structured experience can create a more positive memory than a shorter, more intense one. This insight has profound implications not just for healthcare, but for how we design all kinds of experiences in our lives. Have you ever found yourself saying just one more episode at 2 a.m.? You're not alone, and it's not just about weak willpower. Streaming services like Netflix have mastered the art of manipulating the peak end rule to keep you glued to your screen, transforming casual viewing into marathon sessions that last until dawn. While Netflix holds its viewer data close to the chest, their remarkably high 93% customer retention rate speaks volumes about their ability to create engaging experiences. But how exactly do they engineer these addictive viewing patterns? Consider how streaming platforms structure their content. Unlike traditional TV, where episodes end with a sense of closure before next week's installment, streaming shows often end episodes at peak emotional moments, right when the dramatic tension reaches its highest point. This isn't just dramatic flair, it's psychological engineering at work. By ending on these peaks, they ensure that your memory of the episode remains intensely emotional, compelling you to immediately start the next one. Take Breaking Bad, which saw a massive surge in viewership after becoming available on Netflix. Each episode was masterfully crafted to end on a high-stakes moment, while seasons concluded with even more dramatic peaks. The show's creator, Vince Gilligan, explicitly credited Netflix's binge-watching model for keeping the show alive and building its audience. But it's not just about cliffhangers. Streaming services have developed sophisticated algorithms to identify what constitutes a peak moment for different viewer demographics. They analyze everything from pause patterns to rewind behaviors, understanding exactly when viewers are most engaged. The strategic placement of these peak moments follows a careful pattern. Early episodes establish emotional investment. Mid-season episodes deliver increasingly intense peaks. Season finales combine multiple peak moments with a powerful ending. Post-credit scenes or previews create immediate anticipation for the next season. This manipulation of the peak end rule extends beyond individual episodes. Season finales are carefully crafted to leave viewers with such a strong emotional impression that they'll return months later for the next season. It's why shows like Stranger Things end seasons with both resolution, satisfying ending, and mystery, peak anticipation for what's next. However, when this formula fails, it fails spectacularly. Consider the infamous finale of Game of Thrones. Despite years of peak moments and devoted viewership, the disappointing ending colored viewers' perception of the entire series. The most fascinating aspect of this phenomenon is how it's changing storytelling itself. Writers and showrunners now craft narratives specifically for binge watching, knowing that viewers will likely consume multiple episodes in one sitting. They're not just telling stories, they're engineering emotional experiences designed to exploit our psychological tendencies. The Netflix effect shows us how well understood psychological principles can be used to shape behavior on a massive scale. By strategically manipulating peaks and endings, streaming services haven't just changed how we watch television. They've transformed how we remember and engage with entertainment altogether. Ever wonder why world-class restaurants often serve an unexpected complimentary dessert just when you think the meal is over? Or why that tiny palate cleanser appears at precisely the right moment? These aren't just acts of generosity. They're carefully orchestrated peak moments in a sophisticated psychological dance. The world's top 50 restaurants have turned experience design into an art form, understanding that a memorable meal isn't just about the food, it's about the strategic placement of peak moments and a carefully crafted ending. Let's peek behind the curtain of this gastronomic theater. Consider how Michelin-starred restaurants structure their tasting menus. Places like Arpège in Paris don't just serve great food, they orchestrate an emotional journey. They use seasonal and local ingredients to ensure each menu creates unique discovery moments. But it's the timing of these moments that's truly fascinating. Research suggests that restaurants typically engineer 5 to 10 distinct peak moments per meal service, each carefully positioned to maximize emotional impact. Take The Alchemist in Copenhagen, which combines performance and food in a 50-course meal divided into acts. Each dish comes with a message, often about sustainability or social responsibility. This isn't just dinner. It's an immersive 6-hour experience where even the dome-projected visuals are timed to create specific emotional peaks. But perhaps the most brilliant application of the peak end rule comes in how these restaurants handle the end of the meal. The complimentary petit four or unexpected dessert isn't random. It's a deliberate strategy to end on a high note. After all, research shows that 56% of consumers say fast payment and reduced queuing is critical to positively influencing their perception of a retail brand. Top restaurants understand this, which is why they often handle payment discreetly and follow it with a final, sweet surprise. Contrast this with common restaurant mistakes that violate the peak end rule, making customers wait for the bill, creating a negative end moment, clearing plates too quickly, rushing the experience, serving the best dish too early, misplacing the peak, ending with payment hassles, ending on a transaction rather than an experience. The data is clear. Over 75% of shoppers say that queuing to pay is the worst part of any retail experience. Smart restaurants have learned to handle this necessary evil by burying it between positive moments, like that complimentary digestive before and the farewell truffle afterward. Some restaurants have even started experimenting with the length of their tasting menus based on this principle. Chef George Ruan at Baum initially offered 21 courses, but shortened the menu to 19 after guest feedback, understanding that palate fatigue could diminish the impact of peak moments. It's a perfect example of how duration matters less than the intensity of peak moments and the quality of the ending. The most successful restaurants also understand the power of anticipation. They create what psychologists call open loops, moments of anticipation that keep diners engaged throughout the meal. A hint about a special dessert early in the meal, the ritual of preparing a tableside dish, or the story behind an upcoming course all serve to create mini peak moments of anticipation. This strategic timing extends to the pacing of the meal itself. Studies show that after waiting more than 3 minutes, the perceived wait time multiplies with each passing minute. After 5 minutes, the perceived wait time doubles. Smart restaurants use this knowledge to ensure that gaps between courses never exceed this threshold, preventing negative peaks from forming. The restaurant revolution shows us that in experience design, timing isn't just important, it's everything. By understanding when to place peak moments and how to craft memorable endings, restaurants aren't just serving meals. They're creating memories that will bring diners back again and again. Here's a puzzling question. Why do some weekend getaways feel more memorable than 2-week vacations? The answer lies in a fascinating paradox that's forcing travel companies to completely rethink how they design experiences. Research into vacation satisfaction reveals a counterintuitive truth. Happiness levels typically peak around the midpoint of a vacation, regardless of its duration. This means that a 14-day vacation doesn't necessarily create twice the happiness or memorable moments of a 7-day trip. In fact, studies show that travelers who match their vacation duration to personal chronotypes, natural sleep-wake cycles, report 18% higher satisfaction levels with their trips. This phenomenon becomes even more interesting when we look at how people remember their vacations. A negative peak moment, like a lost luggage incident or a rude hotel staff encounter, can dramatically color the memory of an entire trip. This explains why travel companies are increasingly obsessive about preventing these negative peaks, even if it means extending other aspects of the experience. Consider how cruise lines have revolutionized their departure procedures. Instead of ending with the stress of departure and luggage handling, a potential negative peak, many now schedule farewell events and special last-night experiences. Royal Caribbean, for instance, has transformed what used to be a purely administrative process into a series of carefully crafted moments, ensuring the trip ends on a high note rather than with travel logistics. But it's not just about avoiding negatives. Smart travel companies are deliberately engineering peak moments throughout the journey. For example, luxury hotels have discovered that small improvements near the end of a stay, like a complimentary fruit plate with a personalized farewell note or a free drink at checkout, can significantly impact how guests remember their entire stay. The data supports this approach. Research indicates that travelers who experience well-designed peak moments during their trips report 30% less severe jet lag symptoms and show a 15% boost in post-vacation productivity. This suggests that it's not the length of the vacation that matters most, but rather the quality and timing of key experiences. This understanding has led to some fascinating innovations in travel design. Hotels strategically timing their most impressive services for the first and last days. Tour companies restructuring itineraries to build toward emotional peaks. Airlines redesigning their arrival experiences to end journeys more positively. Destinations creating specific photo moments that serve as manufactured peaks. But perhaps the most interesting application comes from boutique travel companies that now design shorter, more intense experiences rather than longer, more diluted ones. They've discovered that 3 days of carefully crafted peak moments can create more lasting memories than 2 weeks of pleasant but unremarkable experiences. The implications extend beyond just vacation design. When neuroscientific research shows that alternating between short 3-5 day and long 10+ day vacations throughout the year can enhance cognitive flexibility by up to 28%, it suggests that our traditional approach to vacation planning might need rethinking. Consider this. Would you rather have a 2-week vacation with generally pleasant experiences, or a 1-week trip packed with intentionally created peak moments and a memorable ending? The vacation paradox suggests that duration matters far less than we think. It's not about how long we're away, but how effectively those moments, especially the peaks and endings, are crafted to create lasting memories. This insight is revolutionizing how we think about travel. After all, when we look back on our travels years later, we don't remember every minute. We remember the moments that peaked above the rest, and how it all ended. Every time you complete a purchase on Amazon with a single click, or finish setting up a new iPhone with a congratulatory animation, you're experiencing the peak end rule in action. Tech companies have become masters at engineering digital experiences that aren't just functional, they're memorable. Consider Amazon's evolution since its inception. Their famous one-click checkout, introduced in 1997, wasn't just about convenience. It was about transforming a potentially frustrating peak moment, the checkout process, into a moment of delight. The impact was so significant that Amazon patented the feature, forcing other companies to license it until the patent expired in 2017. Today, their checkout-free Amazon Go stores take this principle even further, eliminating the traditionally negative peak of waiting in line altogether. Research shows that Gen Z and millennials are highly engaged with digital experiences. 58% of Gen Z say they can't go more than 4 hours without internet access. They expect personalized, seamless interactions that create emotional peaks through predictive technology and instant gratification. Contrast this with older users, who surprisingly report higher levels of presence in virtual reality environments compared to younger users. In fact, studies show that older adults experience significantly less cybersickness in VR environments, suggesting that age-specific peak moments need to be engineered differently for various demographics. Apple, for instance, creates peak moments through their unboxing experience, a process so carefully engineered that they have a team dedicated to the out-of-box experience. The final moment of setup, when your new device is ready to use, is deliberately designed to create a positive ending to what could otherwise be a stressful setup process. But when digital interfaces fail to consider the peak end rule, the results can be disastrous. Studies show that 25% of customers will defect after just one bad experience. This is particularly evident in app retention rates, where the global average shows a steep decline. Day 1, 26% retention. Day 7, 13% retention. Day 30, 7% retention. The companies that buck this trend are those that deliberately engineer peak moments throughout the user journey. Social media platforms have become particularly adept at this, creating algorithms that serve users peak content moments throughout their sessions. It's why TikTok's algorithm is so addictive. It's constantly learning and delivering content peaks that keep users engaged. UX designers now use specific metrics to identify and engineer these peak moments. Task success rate, time on task, error rates, click tracking. But perhaps the most powerful application of the peak end rule in digital interfaces comes from understanding that negative peaks have a disproportionate impact. When users encounter an error or frustration, their memory of the entire experience can be tainted. This is why companies like Google invest heavily in error message design and recovery experiences. They know that how you handle failure can be more memorable than success. The future of digital interfaces lies in even more sophisticated applications of the peak end rule. As artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent, we're seeing the emergence of predictive interfaces that anticipate user needs and create personalized peak moments. Imagine a shopping app that knows exactly when to offer assistance, or a productivity tool that celebrates your achievements at precisely the right moment. This digital revolution in experience design shows us that memory isn't just about what happened. It's about how those moments were engineered to feel. In the digital world, every click, swipe, and interaction is an opportunity to create a peak moment that users will remember long after they've closed the app. How do you want to remember your life? It's a profound question that becomes even more fascinating when viewed through the lens of the peak end rule. Because while we've explored how this principle shapes our experiences of movies, meals, and medical procedures, its most powerful application might be in how we design our own lives. Think about your most vivid memories. Chances are they're either moments of intense emotion, graduations, first dates, career milestones, or significant endings like leaving a job or moving to a new city. Research into human memory reveals something remarkable. People can accurately recall 93-95% of the verifiable details from peak life moments, even years later. Yet the mundane days in between often blur together, creating what psychologists call duration neglect on a life scale. This suggests that the quality of our memories, and by extension, our perception of life satisfaction, depends more on creating meaningful peaks and endings than on maintaining a consistently pleasant existence. Consider how this understanding could transform your approach to life's major decisions. Instead of optimizing for continuous comfort, you might deliberately seek out challenging experiences that create memorable peaks. Rather than staying in a mediocre job for stability, you might take calculated risks that lead to more intense positive experiences. The peak end rule suggests that a life punctuated by remarkable moments and meaningful transitions might be remembered more fondly than one of steady contentment. This principle even helps explain why certain life transitions feel more satisfying than others. Research shows that people who actively design the endings of their experiences, whether it's a job, a relationship, or a place of residence, tend to remember those chapters of their lives more positively. The implications for personal decision-making are profound. Career changes. Instead of dreading the 2 weeks' notice, design a meaningful transition that leaves both you and your employer with a positive final impression. Relationships. Focus on creating peak moments of connection rather than just avoiding conflicts. Education. Structure learning experiences around breakthrough moments rather than continuous, steady progress. Life transitions. Pay special attention to how you end each chapter of your life, knowing it will disproportionately color your memories. But perhaps the most powerful application comes in how we handle life's inevitable challenges. Understanding the peak-end rule explains why negative experiences can feel so defining. A single traumatic moment or painful ending can overshadow years of positive experiences. However, this same principle offers hope. By actively creating positive peaks and carefully managing endings, we can reshape how we remember even difficult periods of our lives. The neuroscience supports this approach. Studies show that when people consciously engineer peak moments in their lives through planned celebrations, intentional challenges, or meaningful rituals, they experience enhanced cognitive flexibility and improved emotional resilience. Consider the difference between two approaches to life. The first person lives cautiously, avoiding risks and maintaining a comfortable routine. The second person deliberately seeks out peak experiences, taking that challenging job, having that difficult but necessary conversation, pursuing that ambitious goal. According to the peak-end rule, the second person is likely to look back on their life with greater satisfaction, even if they encountered more setbacks along the way. This isn't about reckless thrill-seeking. It's about understanding that our memories, and therefore our life satisfaction, are shaped more by standout moments and how things end than by the sum of all our experiences. By designing our lives with this principle in mind, we can create a collection of memories that tell a more meaningful story. The peak-end rule isn't just a quirk of psychology, it's a blueprint for living a more memorable life. It suggests that the path to a life well lived might not be in seeking constant happiness, but in creating powerful moments worth remembering and ensuring our various life chapters end on notes that resonate with our values and aspirations. The peak-end rule reveals a fundamental truth about human experience. Our memories aren't perfect recordings, but carefully curated stories, shaped by moments of intensity and how things end. As we've seen, this principle influences everything from how we remember a dentist visit to how we reflect on entire chapters of our lives. But understanding this psychological principle isn't just about analyzing the past. It's about designing better experiences for the future. As you move forward with this knowledge, consider: how might you redesign a common frustrating experience using the peak-end rule? Think about a typical commute, a weekly meeting, or even a mundane household chore. What strategic peaks could you create? How could you transform the ending to make the entire experience more memorable? What are the ethical implications of manipulating experiences based on the peak-end rule? While companies and organizations increasingly use this principle to shape our experiences, where do we draw the line between enhancement and manipulation? Is it ethical for healthcare providers to extend procedures to create better memories? Should streaming services be transparent about how they engineer content for maximum emotional impact? Can you identify a personal experience where the peak-end rule influenced your memory and subsequent decisions? Perhaps a vacation that ended poorly colored your entire memory of the trip, or a challenging project that concluded triumphantly left you with an unexpectedly positive impression. How did these memories influence your later choices? How might understanding the peak-end rule change your approach to creating experiences for others? Whether you're planning a friend's celebration, managing a team at work, or designing a customer experience, how could you strategically place peak moments and craft meaningful endings to create more positive, lasting memories? These questions invite us to move beyond passive understanding to active application. The peak-end rule isn't just an interesting psychological phenomenon. It's a powerful tool for designing more meaningful experiences, making better decisions, and ultimately, creating more memorable lives.